In the midst of a widespread crisis that has already brought down several major banks and put others in jeopardy, Peter Schiff, CEO of Europe Pacific Asset Management, has likened the current situation to the 2018 financial crisis and called it as a sequel that will be worse than the one that preceded, the 2008 recession. Well, you just arrived at the right time. Today, we're unveiling that truth, once again about the global economy and which direction it is heading in 2023 with Schiff's facts and warnings. So, without wasting any time, let's get right into today's video. Schiff was responding to a previous tweet in which he claimed that the Credit Suisse was the casualty of a Swiss central bank's unfavorable interest rate hikes, and that the Swiss would choose the tab for greater inflation. But he additionally said in an interview, which was broadcast on March 22, that inflation would be substantially greater in the US. In expressing his standpoint, the American stockbroker stated that the Federal Reserve of the United States triggered another financial crisis, and the media is hesitant to refer to this as an economic downturn. They kept claiming that there is a banking crisis. As Schiff pointed out in his statement that what happened in 2008 was a banking crisis, and no one wants to talk about it because they don't want to recall those memories and make comparison to what happened back in 2008. However, what's happening now is just like a part 2 of that, where it is more likely to cause much more damage to the economy and bank reserves than before. He further emphasized that from 2002 through 2005-ish, the Federal Reserve held lending rates at 1%, giving birth to adaptable rate mortgages, zero-doc financing, nothing down, and the era of cheap money. He said that we inflated the housing bubble, and many of these real estate loans turned bad when the Federal Reserve ultimately adjusted rates and raised them to roughly 5%, resulting in the financial crisis. As stated by Schiff, the government averted the economic downturn with the use of quantitative easing and 0% rates of interest. But now that we've had 0% inflation rates for over 10 years, the Federal Reserve has made far more monetary policy mistakes since the 2008 financial crisis than prior, and so it has raised a much bigger credit bubble. Interestingly, as Finbald reported on March 20, the financial expert and long-term Bitcoin or BTC critic previously predicted a substantial fall in the value of the US dollar and that it would drive the world to transition from currency to digital assets in the future, but that Bitcoin would not be considered as one of them. Will the inflation get worse? On Wednesday morning, the latest Consumer Price Index or CPI numbers were announced. Year-on headlined the CPI, comprising food and energy, grew by 8.5% in July, a decrease in the official inflation number from the previous month, when prices jumped by 9.1% year-over-year. The result of 9.1% was a 41-year high. On precisely the same day as the CPI data, President Joe Biden declared that buyer prices had changed by 0% month-over-month. He said that the US economy had 0% inflation in the month of July, and if that is combined with last week's spectacular job report of 528,000 new jobs created in the previous month and 3.5% layoffs, it highlights the type of economy we've been constructing. President Biden was referring to the headline CPI circulation month-over-month, which remained constant from the prior month of June. Core CPI, which eliminates food and energy, climbed 5.9% year-on-year and 0.3% month-on-month. But, as per Schiff's word, that is not something that can be considered as relief for the consumers. If the official CPI is taken into account then, the prices of which goods which were already high didn't get any higher in the month of July. Schiff said that despite the fact that there is a minor decline in reported CPI, Schiff claimed that the inflation would be a lot worse. He further said that it is more likely to happen in the future that the US economy will get a higher inflation figure than 9.1% and that the economy is nowhere near done with the inflation problem. It will be around for a long time, most likely the rest of this era and beyond. Now, what are the possible outcomes of this? Peter Schiff continues to discuss his thoughts on the US economy and the Federal Reserve's efforts to contain inflation. He tweeted on Saturday on where the United States economy is heading. He mentioned two possible outcomes of this whole situation while describing many. The Federal Reserve is successful in restoring inflation to 2%. Shares, bonds, and real estate all collapse, resulting in a massive monetary calamity and severe downturn that includes government defaults and expenditure cuts. Moving on to discuss the subsequent end result, Schiff said that the Federal Reserve changes course before inflation climbs to 2%. If the Fed shifts, either to avoid a monetary disaster or in the wake of at least one, inflation would rise, mirroring the experience following the 2008 monetary crisis. Instead of working towards the greenback, everyone will be running away from it this time. Schiff also tweeted on Friday that everyone is aware of the high inflation of the 1970s, which did not end until Volcker became harsh in the early 1980s. However, for the 10 years from 1982 to 1992, the average annual CPI increase was 4.43%. The US Federal Reserve didn't bring inflation back down to 2% until after the 2008 financial crisis. By frequently tweeting on the status of the US financial system, Peter Schiff further claimed that because of nearly a decade of inflated banking and financial coverage, inflation is here to stay and may grow a lot worse despite price increases. That is highly adverse for the dollar and extremely favorable for gold, while adding that sub-negative 2% inflation times are gone. Furthermore, he stated in August that the United States is in the midst of a major monetary catastrophe that will turn into a much bigger disaster when defaults on payments begin. He warned of a financial slump in the United States that could be a lot worse than 2008. Schiff recently reached an agreement with Puerto Rico's monetary authority and agreed to dissolve his Euro-Pacific financial business without committing any legal violation. Schiff also deferred with Wharton College finance professor Jeremy Siegel, who expressed his financial perspective on CNBC last week. He said that Jeremy is not right in his opinion. He claimed that what Jeremy thinks is that dropping real estate prices signal that the inflation threat has passed. That leads to lower asset costs, client expenses including those associated with home ownership such as rent, mortgage, payment, insurance, taxes, utilities, and upkeep will continue to rise. The stock market's worst performing categories in 2002 will almost certainly repeat as the worst performing categories in 2023. Schiff has consistently warned about the impending collapse of the US economy and the US dollar. In October, he issued a warning about the growing national debt that the United States cannot repay. The Economist further added that we now have far more debt than we experienced in 2008. So, when the defaults kick in, it will be a far worse tragedy. Schiff also warned that the Federal Reserve's present practices will lead to market collapses, a massive monetary crisis, and a severe recession. Why is Peter Schiff not a big fan of cryptocurrency? Have you ever considered investing in cryptocurrencies? If so, then you've noticed that the tremendous increases in value that several coins have witnessed in recent years. Bitcoin is a fantastic example, as many believe it will be an eventual autonomous bank. Peter, who has worked as an investment counselor and economic expert for years, believes this is not true. Rather, what he believes is that Bitcoin's true success is dependent on more individuals purchasing it. If one holds it, they must convince a large number of their friends or co-workers to purchase it, since this is the only way for its price to rise. Bitcoin is not something like real estate, which can be rented out, stocks which can be divided, or bonds which pay interest. It's not a resource in the sense that one can use it to create electricity, like oil. It's not like gold, which can be used to manufacture jewelry, carry electricity, and be used in a variety of industrial purposes. This is exactly why Peter is apprehensive about cryptocurrencies. It is not supported by anything other than individuals purchasing it, which reduces its worth. People will only buy if they knew others would buy as well, resulting in a gigantic balloon that can explode at any time. With this in consideration, it is probably safe to state that Bitcoin is not a good trade for everyone. Even though it has grown in popularity in recent years, it is still a very unpredictable market in which the price of coins can occasionally go down and also up. As a result, it's advisable to be cautious with your money and ensure you understand what you're doing before investing in it. If things don't go as planned, you might wind up jeopardizing all of your money. So, do you agree with Peter Schiff's predictions for 2023 and believe his forecasts will be true? Or do you think the other way around? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.